Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bridging Impact podcast. I have a former coach of mine, Coach Turp. Last week I had my former varsity coach, Coach Bezio, on. Now I have Coach Turp. He was my JV basketball coach when I was a junior, and he really helped me, understand how to be a leader, one of the first coaches, because I was in a position where I was a year older than some of the players I was with, and I appreciate, what you did for me now and now hopping on the podcast and sharing your wisdom.
All right. I'm much happy to be here.
All right. So the first question, we'll dive in. I want to talk a little bit before we talk about your coaching experience and now talking about bridging the impact and giving it back is I want to talk about, what kind of impact did basketball have on you as a player?
So it's when I was growing up, pretty quickly I learned that basketball is not just a thing that you can use and just let it go. It had to become a lifestyle for me, and I was very lucky to be a part of a lot of great situations growing up, whether it was AAU basketball or high school basketball or you know college basketball as well. I really took that into to account to really, you know, as a player and as a person and as a just an individual in life to just try to buy in and use it for what it's worth. And as long as you buy in and you do the right things, I think that it's a lot of great things that you can get from the game of basketball. And this includes, that doesn't even involve the basketball or the court or the gym or anything at all.
Right. And you said something interesting. You said become a lifestyle. And I'm curious, because a lot of the athletes that I'm working with now that want to, become better, whether, it's on the court or off the court in basketball or in school, right? It has to become a lifestyle. And I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit more on what that meant to you when you were younger.
Yeah, just growing up in the LA area, it was a very rich and concentrated area at that time to me that was a lot of talent and it was a lot of competition and skill. And if you wanted to um, kind of compete at that level that those players were at, you definitely had to, in the words, go the extra mile or do the things that's going to keep you prepared and, when the opportunity comes to that time that you were ready to seize those opportunities. It's just with anything else, with making a lifestyle, you gotta be thinking about it more than others. You may have to put in a couple extra hours, a couple times a week. It could be a situation where you have to surround yourself with other athletes or other people that are in the same mindset or the same uh, wavelength as you as well, and it's just a big thing to just have to always be actively physically doing the game. I think as we all know, like being mentally engaged is very important as well. So just kind of thinking about it, maybe watching it a little bit, having people around that are that have the same goals as you is always a step in the right direction to create that lifestyle naturally.
Yeah, 100%. That's an interesting part that I think a lot of young athletes and maybe even sometimes coaches don't even think about, when they're developing, athletes and basketball players. This is about, when you're building like a basketball lifestyle or an athletic lifestyle, it really matters about who you are around because, there's the saying that we are, most like the five people we spend the most time with. I'm sure there's some variation of data based on, an individual person, but, how can you best like explain that who you are around help you get to and play collegiate basketball at Humboldt State?
It was definitely a learning experience. You don't always don't get it right on the first time, and I definitely had different individuals in my life that were the cliche and some of it for a lifetime. So um, those were the things that I had to figure out throughout the way. But um, with I would call my circle of people that that have been around and that I trust, um, they have those things that drive themselves and they help to in our circle, we have to drive others as well. So it was it's a lot of people in my circle that are coaches, which is always great, and they had like mind as myself to continue to be around the game. And there's others that are in my circle as well that that just wanted to be a fan and a spectator, and they took the game for what it was worth, and now they're applying it in their own career, and they're applying it being a family man and things of that nature. And I definitely see a lot of traits that we do have that are common, even if we are not in the same career field. So just definitely that iron sharpens iron. Just making sure that everyone is staying intact and making sure everything's good with everyone and checking in on how how can we assist and help people that's gonna be there for us.
100%. And I know that you're still in the coaching industry, but you talked about some of the people in your circle, coming up and being athletes that are now in different industries. I'm curious, what do you think are some like common threads of, kind of like basketball wisdom that you have taken along that you now apply, obviously to now as a coach, but also like into your personal life as well?
Yeah, man, it's very interesting how it ties into um, how I almost critical, you know, whether it's like you say, anything that doesn't have nothing to do with sports or basketball. Like, let's just say I'm reading a book, or let's just say I'm potentially going to watch another sport, or going to a I actually was pretty interested or curious about how the logistics of like a music festival goes. Like, and, it was just really, really kind of just making you um, think more to a outside the box kind of deal, and it just kind of makes you a little bit curious, but at the same time, it's just just being a person that that wants to learn and want to see how being organized and being on time and punctual, and knowing that it takes a lot of individuals and a lot of pieces in a lot of other industry that makes a corporation move, a company move, anything that's going to involve a big event or even a small event. So just seeing all the parts, being able to physically move on and make something happen.
100%. And I'm curious, kind of as I hear you talk, it's kind of like that coach, that leadership, that person, the conductor of of the orchestra, so to speak. You're talking about the bigger picture and organizing, and putting people in different parts and in their strengths. And then I'm curious, when you were a player, did you see yourself as a coach, as a kind of a conductor? Were you one of the like the leaders on your team? And if so, like what has that experience then helped you now as a coach?
Yeah, it was a interesting as I was playing. Um, I can honestly say I had seen myself as a coach. I did, invest a lot of time, mentally and physically and spiritually into the game, but I just felt that it was in that mindset of, hey, if I want to go pro, or I want to get to the highest level, and that was very in my mind kind of like the only way that I felt that I could contribute to the game at that time, but which was obviously changed with a great opportunity that I didn't even see in myself. It was another basketball minded person that saw that coaching mindset in myself, which was pretty interesting. But I would say definitely it was something that I was more so of a leader of just by action. I wasn't very vocal in the sense of constructing or conducting a team and being that that vocal leader that gets people in the right places. I just felt that I was more the leader that would go out and just show the team that I'm bought in, and I would show by my actions with with my gameplay and with my motivation to pick up my teammates and to being intact with knowing what defense we're in, knowing what offense we're in, kind of being that leader saying, hey, I'm going to do my part, and if we all do our parts, then I think we'll be successful, and at the end of the day, that's going to lead to, some W's, and, that's going to lead to some L's as well. But, you know, That's just a part of the game.
Yeah, 100%. It's like leading by example, and like every team has, the different players and different personalities. But I feel like leading by example, especially even now as a coach, and you can probably elaborate on it more, is really important because, you don't want to, if you're a player, you don't want to be coached by someone who says, is it like rah rah, but let's say they always talk about playing connected as a team, but then you don't feel like the coach is connected with the team, so it's like they're not leading by that example that they're talking about. And I feel like your probably pursuit and desire, right, when you're a player to go professionally, that's a one track, and then having a basketball mentor, have a conversation with you, be like, hey, I see that you obviously understand the game in a way, and your leadership is shown through action. You would be a great coach. Could you expand more on that transition from player to coach, and kind of talk about maybe even some of the challenges that were at the beginning of going from player to coach?
Yeah, it was a definitely a struggle. I would say that to be honest, but it was a situation where get into my last my senior season, and we were kind of up and down all year, and I was faced with a at that time wasn't sure if it was a serious injury or not, but later as I found out after season, it was just I had to be really honest just with myself. I still had desire, and I felt the somewhat of a capacity to still make an impact playing, and but as my body was not physically healthy, I just felt that it would be a situation where I wouldn't be able to seize it, an opportunity that I wanted properly. So, granted, I was able to diagnose what was wrong with the injury that I had, which was a torn labrum in my shoulder. Um, so at that time, I knew that I had to backtrack. Um, being knowing players that I play with personally, and knowing players that played on in other programs, I know that being a professional or jumping into that world is a very, and that small window I think did not you know coincide with my injury and my recovery time, and just getting back into uh, being in quote unquote pro basketball shape and pro basketball level of basketball. That was going to be pretty a really big challenge, being out the game and not being able to compete for a year or two, because as things move on quick, and you know players are getting better, they're faster, they're longer, and they're younger. So and that's what is a really big challenge, and I kind of knew that as well. So I kind of had to transition myself into a mindset. Okay, like went to school, went to Humboldt State, got my bachelor's degree. Like, let's try to put that into place. And, it was kind of a rut in life where I wasn't where I wanted to be, and, taking odd jobs, and, just kind of, just putting some food on the table. And then a Humboldt County basketball legend, Isaac Gilday, we was always around kind of each other. I did a couple camps for him, youth camps, and just being around the game, and helping kids understand the fundamentals, and just you know at the age, try to have fun. And he said that it's an opportunity to coach at the high school level, and it would be a great opportunity for me to kind of use my wisdom for the game of basketball, and kind of use that help help myself around the game and help others. And I didn't really see that in me. I just felt that like I said, I got to be a player. I got to be a part of the game. If I'm not playing and physically going through that grind, that I didn't know how to um, apply myself within the game, and he saw that in myself and took the opportunity at Arcata High. Um, I was a freshman coach, head coach, and it was a challenge, man. That was the first time I had to make really tough decisions and understand what it's like being a coach, um, outside of the games, and outside of of just what everyone else sees as a spectator or as a parent or guardian or friend. I had 30 players try out for that team my first year, and I had to cut more than half of those. kids, man, which is a big learning skill, learning how to, manage, and learning, that, hey, like, this maybe not be their opportunity at this moment, but it may be for them next year. And, making sure that I make the right choices and, get the 12 players that were going to be the best team, best basketball team I can make. So that was really, really interesting. So, but just from there, it was kind of a up and up, and through experiences, through advice, and it was a almost aligning as a perfect situation at the perfect time.
Right. It is really, and I'll testify to that, really challenging to make cuts. Like I just did that this year, and I took, actually, I kept probably even a few more than you, but yeah, it's about 30 kids, and it's really disheartening when you get, players coming up, after, they recognize that they're not going to make the team. Like, coach, what can I do to make the team? Is there another tryout? Is there any other way? And I know that's really challenging. And it sounds like, from being a player, right, it's that transition time. And at the same time where you're transitioning, right, you're kind of tapping into those connections that you have made through the game of basketball as a player, right? You're probably helping out Isaac a little bit through clinics, but through that transition, you talked about getting kind of like, mentorship and advice. And I know that's something that I'm trying to do my best seeking out, with you and BZO, just kind of talking to other coaches who have been around the game. And, a lot of learning, at least, for me, but I'm sure for many people, comes from those connections. So can you talk about, as you were a new coach, a freshman coach, you went to JV, and now you're at the collegiate level, but can you talk about that kind of the importance of having like basketball and just mentors around you to help you become a better coach and better person?
Yeah, it was very, very vital, I would say, in my growth as a coach. Um, it was something that I wanted to dive into as I got more and more invested. And I did have those coaches, whether it was coaches that were local at different high schools, to where venturing off to my my ex uh, college coach at HSU, or at that time, now it's called probably Humboldt, but my ex junior college coach, things like that, or my going back home and visiting, and being able to still connect, with my AAU coach at certain times. And it was things that I was very grateful for, because I have a lot of um, good people that was that wanted to share the information, and they wanted to see the growth, and they wasn't you know holding back any information, or thinking it was for my greed or for my growth. They wanted to share that information, and a lot of times, or be that person to keep the the essence of basketball, keeping what is true to the game, being a student of the game. I think that was the major part of it, in which they wanted me to continue to be a student of the game, and now transitioning to being a student of coaching, and being a leader. So I was very, very thankful to have coaches around that time that were in different leadership styles, different coaching styles. They were all not the same, but just to get that experience. And it was also me being as a coach and being interested to asking the those questions that Justin, that you are asking, which is great questions, and great, being able to really try to figure out what is the what is like, what drives personally you as a coach, and what drives you know players to to buy in. And that is something that is important. And buying into basketball was a lifestyle for me. And that included, like I said before, like using those traits and using those characteristics and all those great qualities that you learn with being on a team and being with a program, and applying that to in the classroom, to when you're getting a job, when it's that time, or applying yourself to at your level. Like you might probably have a couple players that are gearing up to get their driver's license, and gearing up to get those life goals. And that does like anything else, you don't just show up a lot of times and they just hand it to you, or you just got it off of no experience and no knowledge at all. So, all those things come into effect that I think you can use what you learn in basketball um, as life tools.
Yeah, 1,000%. Those life tools are super important, and I want to touch on getting athlete buy-in. But before that, I honestly have just a question about. You talked about kind of being a student of game for coaching. I'm curious. Obviously, I'm asking you questions and things like that, but I'm curious. What is your process? Because now as a collegiate coach, how you kind of like intentionally, make sure that you are being a student of coaching and that you're always trying to be, a better coach next season than you are this season and then the season after that. And even, one game at a time.
hmm Yeah, it is not reinventing the wheel kind of sort of thing. You don't have to the knowledge of 1 year and then all of a sudden it's a new year, you know, new book sort of deal. I think it's always great to use that experience that you had, whether it was challenges or whether it was a lot of success. So um, yeah, I just like I said, just try to keep watching the game. I definitely try to become more diverse with kind of the information that I'm exposed to. More so lately, I've been kind of interested in being on Twitter and stuff like that. Just more interested in seeing clips on things that happen internationally. Just the style of play. I know that's kind of getting more into play at the very high levels and the professionals and stuff like that. But just different actions and just just a different wavelength probably of what could be done. And I'm always a fan of, hey, when it comes to buying in and getting players every year and getting that that consistency going. A lot of times, you don't have to have a concrete you know traditional or whatever you like as a coach. We're gonna run the same offense every year. We're gonna run the same defense every year. Like, I don't. I'm not going to adjust to my players' skill level or my players' physicality or you know my mental capacity of my team. I'm going to try to mold them into sometimes something that is could take a much longer time to adjust or maybe not their strong suits to kind of make them beneficial as a teammate and to themselves to help them improve. So I'm definitely someone that tries to um, try to get the players that I feel that that will adjust and will be the best athletes for my type of style. But at the same time, it could be an adjustment to where I think a player is gonna pan out to be X Y Z and they're actually a ABC when they get here. So it's just kind of being able to adjust, being able to make sure that your team is in the best position to uh, be successful as an individual and as a teammate. So I think watching more international play, smaller clips of whether it's how they train, how they start with the youth and they do different drills and different actions to whereas it can be all the way up until like very interested and very in tune with like the baseline out of bounds and sideline out of bounds plays. Like those are the things that I kind of really try to take a carrot on. And if those are the opportunities that a lot of teams would love to take advantage of, and those are a point in the game where I think it can change the tempo and change the mindset of being locked in on those type of moments. So yeah, just trying to be a student, like I said, and whether it's watching middle school, watching high school, college, just watching other teams in our same level, in our same league, and you know, different coaches. But I think it's a consensus that talking to other coaches that of the athletes these days, they have a lot of talent, they have a lot of skill, and a lot of time the coaches have a very difficult time of unlocking that IQ on being that one step above their competitors that taking that extra mile, knowing that I have not only the physical um, set for basketball, but I have the mindset for basketball to know that mentally I'm going to be just as strong as I am, or skillful that I am physically. So yeah, mental game is very important.
Yeah, the mental game is very important. I'd love to dive in that here in a minute, but you talked about something, you know, interesting before where you're talking about, especially at the collegiate level, you're able to recruit a little bit more and, kind of have an identity of what you want your team to be and what you're kind of like seeking for in a player. But I'm just curious in general, because you have the high school experience as well. And, for some, there may be some coaches, maybe some parents out there that are listening, just curious. You talked about, having and molding, players into kind of a system. And I'm curious, for me, I kind of have the word buy-in written down on my paper. I'm just curious, how you know, build trust with your athletes to get them to buy into like a system that, maybe at first they're like, that doesn't fit my strengths necessarily.
hmm Yeah, it does help that I feel personally that I relate to the game of basketball very well as far as being a person and a player and just an advocate of the game. So being being an athlete that had the career experience of playing at a pretty high level to just being around the game and being around those people that are like-minded. I think it gives me a advantage to be able to uh, be more hands-on, and players learn in all different ways, whether they're doers or they got to see it a couple times on film, or or if it takes just like a little bit of both. So I feel that I try to tap into their strengths with Hayes. As you can attest, there's some practices where I have to do more of a breakdown and kind of walk you through things and kind of open up maybe some different actions that wasn't maybe seen before. More of a like a slow pace kind of deal, and there's other times where we had to learn by action and learn by trial and error and getting some success in practice, whether it's going. I have to jump in the drill. I have to physically get the players locked in and engaged to know that, hey, this is something that you know I can do as well, and that I've done, and I could apply that to the game, even at that age, and even still currently right now I'm still very highly involved and active in practice. So, but yeah, just having those being able to slow down the practice, being able to slow down the thought process and the movements to you know make it a little bit more fast tempo, fast pace, or more game like situation. It's always that lost lost in translation sometimes with going and sitting down in a classroom or sitting down on your phone or whatever it is and like watching film and like watching whether it's yourself or your team or watching another program or another team that is doing something similar and doing something you're trying to apply, and I found that tool really really helpful, and it does kind of sometimes that light switch comes on for some players that just when they see someone else have that success in what you're trying to do, to kind of be more susceptible to buy in when they seen it be successful.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting tool that I feel like maybe as I'm kind of hearing you talk, that I'm underutilizing is even when I'm training athletes and when I'm working with athletes that are on my team, because how they consume information is all video now, right? Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And I feel like watching film, whether again, like you said, it's of yourself or it's like another team or another player that is executing that skill, may help, connect those dots, between like, oh, I'm learning, this skill and this player is executing it perfectly. Oh, that's maybe where I need to kind of improve on a little bit. And, talking about a little bit of the mental game and the mental side of, basketball and sports. You talked about how a lot of coaches now they're in the community, they have the physical tools, they know how to break people down off the dribble. But, sometimes when it comes to games, maybe not necessarily thinking the game, the mental side of the game hasn't been trained and developed enough. So, as a part of, the CR women's program, how do you make sure that you are focusing on the mental side of the game and that side of the development of athletes?
Yeah, it is definitely something that me personally I'm working on, every day because, I'm having to be that leader. One of the leaders of part of our program here, and it is definitely a challenge for this year specifically. We've been having a up and down year, and I feel that it does correlate with so capacity of what we can do and how we try to get everyone to be on the same wavelength at the right time. And I think that has been a really big challenge for us to kind of integrate and synchronize at the same time. There's been multiple games that we've had that that we have been successful and we have had good success, but it is not hasn't been collectively simultaneously. We'll have a buy-in and we'll have a great game from three of our players, and they get it and they understand what's going on at that moment at that time. But then we have two or three other players or three four players that are struggling and they're kind of needing that that extra that extra gear that they're not hitting, or that extra focus mentally. And then we'll have another game, and those four players, and they're clicking, they got it, they're synchronized, and they got out. And and then all of a sudden those two or three that were clicking last game, these two or three are just a different game. And it's a adjustment game. And I felt that we still have a very competitive team. But I think that that's going to be the difference, and when we're really going to see as a team we flourish is when all at this point right now we have 10, 10 active players on the roster, but we have a couple injuries right now. But yeah, it's going to take all 10 players, to being, locked in mentally and being able to be on the same wavelength. And a big part of that is not physically being able to impact the game doesn't mean that you're not important or vital to the game. Um, Tater being on the bench, having that energy, being that mentally focused player to when it is your opportunity to get out there and perform, that you're mentally ready as well. So um, that's just a challenge that's been kind of an experience for me. And we're gonna get through this season. And at this time of year, we always say that, hey, we want to ride that train and ride that ride, man, and we want to keep getting better and escalating throughout the season, to where when we get to the end, we're playing our best basketball. So I think the best basketball is yet to come. And I'm going to use this experience from this season and use that going forward.
No, I love that. And I think you bring up a really good point about, kind of the challenge of being a coach, especially of young people. And I'm sure even professional basketball coaches have this same kind of, challenge where you want, players, whether it's 1 through 10, 1 through 12, 1 through 15, to all be connected and play together. And if number 11 comes off the bench, they're locked in, they're mentally ready, and they're connected with others. And it's kind of challenging, right? Sometimes, because I feel like, sometimes you'll put someone in the game, and they're just not connected, like, for lack of a better term, not connected. And I think that's something that I always try and talk about and talk to, my guys and my players. And I think one thing that has been really challenging I've seen at the varsity level is, like, going back to the skills training. These kids, a lot of this generation of athletes are so skilled off the dribble, one-on-one, but basketball is a 5-on-5 game. And so getting people to, transition and flow and play together. I'm curious, have you seen, that at the collegiate level, like, obviously, highly skilled, players coming that can break down, and they're very good individual players, but they don't quite fit at the college level. And why I think, and I'm hoping to get this across to maybe some of the parents that are listening, why I feel like it's important for athletes to, buy into a team concept when they're, working on their individual craft.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely you know visible at the college level and at the junior college level that I'm currently at. You're right, man. It's a highly skilled game with players and ath you know doing things at this level that is special. And it's going back to that teamwork to where one you want to work on all facets of your game and your skill sets. And but when it comes to I had to learn this as a player too. What is your role on this team? Like, what do you bring to the table? What is going to be not only put you as an individual in the best situation, but it put your team in the best situation as well. And I've been on different teams. I can attest to say I was never the highest scoring player on my team. I was never the highest rebounding per game player on my team as well. But at the same time, I knew that wasn't my role. That wasn't my skill set. But I can attest to this as well. Like, I, made those plays that were quote unquote winning plays. I got those key rebounds. I crashed the glass every time. I was relentless. Just like I said, I took, the game within the game of basketball. Knowing the sets, knowing my offensive, protocol, my best way of making us successful, being on defense, knowing the scouting report, knowing the tendencies of of other players that are on the court, and just as much as I grasped and like just held on to my role, that's when I start to get a lot of experience on the court. And a lot of times I was not the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, or the strongest or anything like that, but just the will to want to um, just to be effective on the court and to be that person on my team to know my role. And just like you said, it's a if you have five players on the court that have the same skill, they all can score the ball. It's going to be really really difficult to help get all five players to score with one basketball. And then and then it goes to test to the other side of the floor as well. With if everyone only knows how to score the ball and dribble the ball, but they don't know, you know, what to do on an off ball screen, or if they don't know what to do on an on ball screen, then it's going to be a big challenge to get other players to uh, potentially say, hey, I know you're a scorer, but we need you to be a 3 and D guy, or hey, I know you're a scorer for your past team or your AAU team or previously, but on this team you need to be opportunistic, and and we need a person that cracks the glass and sprint the lanes hard and dive on the floor, whatever it is. So just and that's what I try to really focus on is putting, like I said, putting players in the right situation and molding them to understand what is their role on a team, because it is going to be similar but different on every experience that they have. Um, it's a skill or a mindset that is still alive. I think that when you go to those programs, whether it's the high school level or even at the college level, they're really true to usually, the best team, as they say, the best team that is playing the best basketball at that time, really succeeds. And I tell all my players all the time, if you can find a team that was successful at a high level and they didn't, communicate on the floor and they didn't keep each other, accountable at all times. If you can find a team that didn't do those things that was successful, please tell me, because I would be very interested to know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. As you were talking about when you were a player, you're talking about the kind of the mindset of thinking the game, right? And knowing your spots on the court and knowing the plays and the mental side and like honestly, being able to crash the glass. I feel like honestly one thing that's, underrated is being able to track, a basketball like, okay, I think this rebound is gonna be long, it's gonna go over here and having that half second difference. And that's like a mental game. That's not you can train that, right? If you just go out and rebound like you're, Dennis Rodman. But I think as we kind of approach, kind of 2 minutes left here in the fourth quarter of this podcast, really want, I'm really curious, for those, especially for you, you play college basketball and, everyone wants a role that is, similar to LeBron James. They want to be the man, the woman on the team that's, getting buckets, right? But I feel like it comes to a point, like if you want to get more play time, to be honest with what role you can do to serve the team. And so for those that, athletes or parents of athletes that are listening to this, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on, giving advice for players that want to train, they want to be better, but also that they need to, recognize and have self-awareness of what they can really contribute to their, whether it's their high school team, AAU team, or college team.
Yeah, no, yeah, I would say, the best advice is to keep learning, keep getting better in all facets of your game. Being able to be versatile is important. So it is important to knowing how to score the ball, knowing how to move off the ball, knowing how to being uh, connected with that opportunity of working on your body in the gym. Those are important aspects of the game. But me growing up and me understanding at a very early age, which I was very lucky, knowing that the game of basketball is yes, it is about putting that ball in the basket in various ways, but being a great teammate is also very important. Being coachable is very important. Um, Being able to have the mental capacity to push your body physically to the next gear, to a new gear you haven't done, pushing yourself mentally into a gear that you get to that threshold where you're running you know 10 suicides in a row or whatever the case may be, and that you're gassed out, and the coach asks you for one more, you know of the team. And those things I feel is going to be very helpful for any young player growing up, parents, guardians, anyone that wants to support any athlete that has any desires to continue to be athletes. So yes, I would say definitely keep in mind that this is a team sport and there is roles on every team, and just be coachable and uh, getting that extra skill work, getting those extra training sessions and personal training. It is going to help you at some point, and if you seize the opportunity. But just keeping in mind, the team aspect of it, and being able to be very very coachable, and being able to be you know adaptive is a skill or a cause that I feel is a little undermined a little bit. So, but yeah, but just staying team oriented, being positive, being encouraging to your teammates. That actually goes a long way.
Yeah, being coachable is huge, and I think it's really, again, it's, I feel like it's a part of the mental side of the game, and it's really underlooked. I feel like for a lot of young athletes that want to break people down on the dribble, but they also have to be able to understand how to take feedback and understand a role, and understand, like you're talking about, having how to have a positive impact on the team, which kind of leads me to my final question of the podcast, which is, you the game of basketball has obviously made a huge impact on both of us, and bridging impact. It's all about, kind of passing that impact along, so what are you hoping to, what kind of impact are you hoping to continue to bridge along in your career now as a basketball coach?
Yeah, yeah. I think that my passion, or my quote unquote end goal for me is, I definitely want to keep alive and keep in the front line, just the true essence of understanding what basketball is, where it came from, what was um, the whole purpose of the just like I said, I was very fortunate to have coaches that tied the game of basketball into life, and they was very relatable, and I feel that that's something that I want to hopefully can continue on, and whether it's coaching, at the highest level, or coaching at the level that is important as well, AAU, and the younger kids as well, younger generation. So no, that would be something that I want to do, and hopefully can continue on, is passing on that that mindset and that knowledge of using the game of basketball and using that as a tool to make yourself a better person on the court. And as at our time in coaching, we have student athletes, so you got to be a student first. So putting that game of basketball and all that hard work and all that focus, and using that in the classroom, and using that in life, and using that as a tool to um, be the best person that you can be. So, just keeping alive that true essence of what basketball means, because it is much more, than that, lines on the court, 3-point line, and putting that orange ball in the basket.
Yeah, it's much bigger than the game itself, and it's about the life lessons. And so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom, and sharing your impact that the game has had on you, and that you're giving back, and that you're giving back to the Bridging Impact community and listeners. So I appreciate it, Coach Turp.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. You're doing a good job, man. And I wish.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.